There were no cameras flashing, no spotlight on a stage, no sequins shimmering or backup dancers in formation. It was a quiet moment, one long in the making, that arrived without warning. Following the death of Tina Turner, the globe grieved the loss of the Queen of Rock and Roll, celebrating her legacy through her victories, her heartbreaks, and that unmistakable, powerhouse voice. As the media coverage eventually dwindled, one voice finally surfaced, a voice deeply entwined with Tina's soul. What was spoken wasn't a carefully crafted tribute or an official statement. It was something else, something raw and deeply personal. And even the most devoted fans were stunned. What legacy did Tina Turner leave behind that shocked the world? And why did he wait until now to speak up? Tina Turner's early years were steeped in abandonment and the instinct to endure. Her childhood began under the shadow of emotional distress and constant instability. The dynamic between her parents, Zelma and Floyd Bullock, was fraught with tension, shaping a chaotic and unsteady household. At just 11 years old, Tina experienced a devastating rupture when her mother suddenly fled their home to escape her abusive spouse. She left without a word, and Tina was left to wonder why. Soon after, her father remarried and vanished as well, effectively abandoning her. She was sent to live with her stern, deeply religious grandparents. The emotional disappearance of her parents, followed by their physical absence, carved deep scars into her identity. Tina would later speak with heartbreaking honesty about feeling unwanted, unloved, and forsaken by those who were supposed to shield her. That early sense of rejection never faded and continued to influence her perception of herself and her value far into adulthood. Her grandparents' home offered little refuge. Her paternal grandparents, strict Baptist believers, upheld a rigid lifestyle that prioritized religion and discipline above emotional care. She was expected to complete domestic duties and maintain regular church attendance. While gospel music became one of her first expressive outlets, the emotional isolation lingered. Memories of cotton fields and a splintered family weighed heavily on her. Tina later confessed she could not recall feeling protected or cherished during this time. Her formative years became a proving ground, preparing her to survive long before the world ever celebrated her. Misfortune continued through her teenage years. A brief reunion with her mother in St. Louis was overshadowed by the loss of one of the only people who provided stability, her maternal grandmother. Not long after, her half-sister tragically perished in a car accident, intensifying her profound sense of emotional loneliness. These episodes etched deep emotional wounds, but they also laid the groundwork for her resilience. During her teen years, Tina worked as a domestic servant in the homes of white families in Tennessee. There, she witnessed the jarring inequalities of race and class, experiences that deepened her understanding of injustice. Much has been written about Tina Turner's transformation into a global music legend. However, the story of the girl molded by early abandonment and quiet suffering often goes untold. Did the early betrayals by those who were supposed to love her influence her tolerance for the abuse she endured with Ike Turner? Did the trauma of feeling powerless become the emotional backdrop that allowed years of mistreatment to persist? In the end, she emerged as a beacon of perseverance and strength. Yet the hidden chapters of her youth reveal another narrative, one of a young girl who had to master the art of enduring pain long before she ever learned to wield her voice. Before the world even knew her name, a spontaneous moment inside a nightclub changed everything. From the church pews to the global stage, the transformation of Tina Turner, born Anna Mae Bullock, into an electrifying, world-renowned icon didn't happen overnight. It was the result of a unique mix of unfiltered talent, audacity, and serendipity. After moving to St. Louis during her teenage years, Anna Mae found herself immersed in the city's lively rhythm and blues scene. Drawn to the vibrant energy of local nightclubs, she eventually stepped into the Manhattan Club, where she encountered Ike Turner and his band, the Kings of Rhythm. Enthralled by their sound, she gathered the courage to ask if she could sing. That spontaneous moment altered the course of her life forever. Her voice, untrained but emotionally charged, left Ike stunned. He invited her to join his band. Before long, he renamed her Tina Turner and began shaping a new image he could control. The name Tina was more than a performance alias. It was part of a strategic move by Ike, who went so far as to trademark it. The intent was clear. If she ever left him, she couldn't take the name with her. From the beginning, her rise was tangled with control and domination. Yet once the spotlight hit, Tina erupted with fierce energy that defied any attempt to hold her back. Her live performances were blazing, filled with wild movements, deep soul, and an undeniable magnetism. Audiences couldn't look away. Despite her insecurities off stage, her presence on stage was overpowering and unforgettable. Even in those early years, it was evident that she carried something truly extraordinary, something no record label or manager could artificially create. Their collaboration evolved into the Ike and Tina Turner Revue, a whirlwind act that defied genre boundaries and became a sensation in the R&B world. Tina's explosive dancing and powerhouse vocals quickly became the act's centerpiece, overshadowing Ike and making her the group's real star. Still, she remained tethered to him, both artistically and legally. Ike handled the arrangements and business, while Tina owned every performance, perhaps using the stage as her only outlet for freedom. Was this her unspoken cry amid the silence of her personal life? Was that spotlight the only place she felt truly in control? One thing was certain. The star was outgrowing the act, whether she realized it or not. Her evolution into Tina Turner wasn't just a branding decision. It was a shield, a psychological armor. For a young black girl from a broken and neglected background, the stage became the only space where she could wield power and experience adoration. Fame offered her a sense of validation, yet with each passing success, the line between her true self and her public persona blurred. Was Tina ever truly permitted to be Anna Mae again? Or did the world's acclaim erase the last remnants of the girl she once was? These are the questions that linger when we trace the beginnings of her journey. A journey of transformation, yes, but also a silent quest to preserve the last remaining fragments of a self she was forced to hide before the world ever saw her light. Behind the curtain of music history, Ike and Tina Turner's Revue emerged as one of the most thrilling live experiences of the 1960s and early 1970s. A force of soulful intensity, raw emotion, and rhythmic mastery. Their presence on stage was nothing short of captivating. Tina electrified audiences with her explosive energy, distinctive voice, and magnetic aura, while Ike orchestrated the music with an iron grip and sharp direction. Their touring schedule was unrelenting, taking them across the US and Europe, where they even opened for the Rolling Stones. Crowds were mesmerized by their seemingly perfect partnership, unaware that what they witnessed was a carefully choreographed act hiding an unsettling reality. Behind the vibrant lights and thunderous applause lay a troubling truth masked by the showbiz glamour. Privately, the bond between Ike and Tina was built on control, intimidation, and frequent violence. Though they appeared united in harmony, Tina later disclosed that her private life was consumed by pain, even as her fame soared. Their union, which began in 1962, was plagued by repeated episodes of both physical and emotional abuse. Tina endured beatings, emotional manipulation, and isolation, all while being paraded before the world as one half of a dazzling entertainment couple. Ike's total dominance extended to every aspect of their professional and personal life, from financial control to public image, leaving Tina with virtually no autonomy or artistic freedom. Could it be that the very performances that brought her acclaim served as her only refuge, a space where she momentarily reclaimed power over her own body and voice? This paradox between the radiant public image and the dark private reality haunted Tina's existence. As the review celebrated triumphs with major hits such as Proud Mary and River Deep, Mountain High, Tina became widely praised for her groundbreaking performances. Still, beyond the stage lights, she lived in a constant state of fear. Her elaborate costumes and fierce dance routines often concealed the physical and emotional scars she bore. One must wonder, did audiences ever truly see past the sparkle and sweat? Or was the grandeur of fame the perfect mask for a tragedy unfolding just out of sight? Eventually, the burden of trauma began to outweigh the glamour and applause. While many credited Ike with building Tina's career, it was her perseverance and innate talent that ultimately sustained it. The price of success was steep, and those close to Tina recognized her evolution from a musical muse into a woman suffering in silence. Even long after the truth was revealed, some found it difficult to reconcile the vibrant image they once celebrated with the abuse that had occurred in its shadow. And perhaps that is the most sobering reality. The world had been applauding a performance that, beneath its brilliance, was in part a desperate plea for help. In 1981, Tina Turner made a decision that would resonate far beyond the confines of the music industry. She chose to speak out. In an interview with People magazine, she publicly detailed the horrific abuse she had suffered during her marriage to Ike Turner, finally tearing down the veil of silence. At a time when domestic violence was rarely acknowledged or taken seriously in public conversations, her candid revelations stunned readers. She spoke of the beatings, the degrading control tactics, and specific incidents that were deeply disturbing. Ike throwing hot coffee on her, forcing her to witness disturbing acts, and physically attacking her, even while she was pregnant. Tina's boldness in exposing her past shook the cultural foundations of an industry that often silenced victims, especially those who are famous and black. Her decision to go public wasn't simply a personal act of catharsis, it was a seismic cultural moment. Tina's story helped reshape the conversation around domestic violence, particularly within celebrity circles where image often overshadowed reality. Dr. Lenore Walker, a pioneer in domestic abuse psychology, noted that Tina's testimony gave strength and credibility to survivors everywhere. It forced society, including legal systems and the media, to acknowledge that abuse wasn't confined to the poor or powerless. If someone as iconic and celebrated as Tina Turner could be subject to such cruelty, then anyone could. Her disclosure demanded a collective reckoning with uncomfortable truths about victimhood and power. Yet, telling her story came with significant risk. Tina later admitted she feared being shunned professionally and doubted whether the public would still embrace her as a symbol of empowerment or simply label her a victim. Would her past overshadow her achievements? Would Ike seek revenge? Despite these fears, Tina's choice to go public marked a pivotal shift, not only in her healing journey, but for countless women watching her. In later interviews, she handled inquiries with grace, never succumbing to sensationalism or exploitation of her trauma. A defining moment came in 1993, when a journalist attempted to provoke her by playing a recording of Ike's voice. Tina responded with unwavering calm. "I have nothing to say." In that quiet refusal, she demonstrated a powerful act of self-preservation rather than submission. Her truth would later be immortalized in her 1986 memoir, I, Tina, which was adapted into the acclaimed film, What's Love Got to Do with It? The story even made its way to Broadway, yet Tina expressed mixed feelings about being forever linked to her painful history. Still, she acknowledged the importance of her voice and the role it played in empowering others. She understood that her silence had once been a shield, but her willingness to speak out had become a beacon for millions. In breaking her silence, Tina Turner didn't just share her story. She broke a societal taboo and redefined what it means to survive and thrive after abuse. When Tina Turner finally walked away from her marriage to Ike in 1976, she was left with nothing but her name and a few coins in her possession. It wasn't just a breakup. It was a leap into the unknown, with no guarantees or safety nets. During the divorce proceedings, she made headlines for asking for no financial support, no material assets, and no royalties. All she wanted was to retain the name Tina Turner. That name, although tied to painful memories, was the only thing she could use to forge a new future. What followed was a period of deep struggle. She relied on food stamps, cleaned homes, and stayed wherever someone would offer a couch. For a woman who had once headlined international tours, it was a dramatic fall, but also a courageous beginning to rebuilding life on her own terms. Despite the embarrassment of her new reality, Tina refused to surrender. She accepted every opportunity she could find, performing in small-time Las Vegas venues, appearing on variety programs, even participating in commercials, just to keep going. These weren't glamorous gigs, but they paid the bills and gave her a fighting chance. The music industry, however, was skeptical. Many viewed her as a has-been, someone who would always be seen through the lens of her connection to Ike. Was it even possible for her to escape his shadow? Could audiences ever embrace her as a solo artist, rather than a survivor of a failed duo? These were the questions Tina faced daily as she began the long process of crafting a second chapter, this time, one that was truly hers. Behind closed doors, Tina poured herself into the task of reinventing her image and sound. She embraced a fresh circle of collaborators, stretched the limits of her vocal range, and delved into rock and pop styles, genres she had always appreciated but seldom had the opportunity to explore. Her drive didn't stem from vengeance, but from a steady, smoldering determination to finally be heard in her own voice. There was an intense urgency in her mission. This wasn't merely about reclaiming her career. It was about asserting her identity beyond the trauma, beyond the headlines, and beyond the heartbreak. The question lingered. Would the world be ready to truly hear her now? The period between walking away from Ike and the 1984 release of Private Dancer was a time marked by adversity. Yet it also became the groundwork for one of the most inspiring reinventions in music history. Tina's resistance to being reduced to her past was revolutionary in an era when the entertainment industry frequently identified women by the men they left behind. Her path was not one of glamour, but of sheer bravery. She didn't simply rebuild a career, she crafted a new version of herself, bold, independent, and stronger than ever. In the process, she gave proof to survivors everywhere that starting again is not a defeat. It is a testament to resilience. Just when everyone assumed she had nothing left to give, Tina emerged with a comeback that stunned the world. By the time Private Dancer made its debut in 1984, Tina Turner had already weathered challenges that would have crushed most: domestic violence, financial ruin, and an industry that had largely turned its back on her. But instead of fading away quietly, or riding a wave of nostalgia, Tina orchestrated a return so audacious that it reshaped her legacy completely. Private Dancer was far more than a solo debut. It was a bold reinvention. Working with contemporary producers, the album blended pop, rock, and soul in a style that was both classic and ahead of its time. The breakout single, What's Love Got to Do With It, soared to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and earned Tina 3 Grammy Awards, including Record of the Year. At 44, she was older than the average female pop artist promoted by major record labels, but she was only getting started. The unexpected triumph of Private Dancer stunned both the critics and the public. Not because Tina lacked ability, but because the music industry had already deemed her past her prime. In a culture obsessed with youth, she defied expectations. With her signature spiky hair, edgy leather skirt, and her gritty, powerful voice, she didn't just return, she broke through every barrier. The album eventually sold more than 10 million copies across the globe, transforming her from a nostalgic figure into an international sensation. Was this her boldest rebellion yet? A reclaiming of everything she had once been denied: autonomy, relevance, and authority. The Private Dancer era was also a visual and stylistic transformation. Gone were the coordinated costumes and rigid choreography of the Ike and Tina Revue. In their place stood a woman liberated, drawing power from her past wounds, not confined by them. Tracks like Better Be Good to Me and I Can't Stand the Rain weren't just popular, they were statements of independence, with each verse echoing the strength born from years of endurance. Even her stage presence evolved. Performances became infused with rock energy, deep emotion, and a raw authenticity. For Tina, success now wasn't just about perseverance, it was about full self-expression. Looking back, Private Dancer was more than a hit album. It marked a seismic cultural shift. Tina Turner broke through the limitations of genre, race, and age to become one of the rare Black women to achieve massive success in both rock and pop, entirely on her own. Her evolution wasn't just musical, it reshaped the very definition of a comeback. She stood as a beacon not only of reinvention, but of personal sovereignty, owning her sound, her image, and her future. She hadn't merely returned, Tina Turner had been reborn. Tina Turner's romance with Erwin Bach didn't begin with sparks flying, but with a calm, quiet moment in an airport in 1985. At that time, Erwin, a German music executive, had been assigned to greet Tina upon her arrival in Dusseldorf. She was 46, deeply immersed in redefining her solo career, and far from seeking out a romantic relationship, especially not after years filled with betrayal and emotional wounds. But something about Erwin's demeanor caught her attention instantly. Later, Tina would admit that her heart raced upon meeting him, though she didn't let herself act on the feeling right away. Their bond began gently, rooted in a friendship that slowly blossomed into deep trust. Having endured a marriage dominated by fear and control, Tina was understandably wary. Could she allow herself to love again without risking another heartbreak? Her hesitation was real. In her memoir, she confessed to fearing she had been too emotionally damaged to love freely. But Erwin proved himself to be something entirely different. Steady and kind, he never forced her into discomfort. He provided something she had rarely encountered in her personal life: emotional refuge. Over time, his unwavering support helped her shed the belief that love must always come with a cost. After nearly 3 decades together, Tina agreed to marry Erwin in 2013. By then, they had already settled into a shared life in Switzerland, where Tina had become a naturalized citizen. Their wedding, held at their elegant lakeside home, was an intimate celebration with close friends such as Oprah Winfrey and Bryan Adams in attendance. But perhaps the truest demonstration of their love came in 2017, when Erwin selflessly donated one of his kidneys to Tina during her battle with kidney failure. She later wrote that she had resigned herself to dying rather than endure dialysis, and that his gift had quite literally saved her life. Their relationship stood in sharp contrast to the one that had once nearly destroyed her. With Erwin, Tina didn't just find love, she found restoration. He never demanded she be anyone other than her authentic self, complex, sensitive, and extraordinary. In her later interviews, Tina called their connection true love, not because it was dramatic or sweeping, but because it was grounded in peace. He showed me that I could be loved without sacrificing who I am, she shared. Ultimately, the second half of her life wasn't defined solely by fame or triumph. It was enriched by the quiet, enduring happiness of being fully seen and cherished. Tina Turner's impact transcends music. She became one of the most potent cultural and feminist figures of both the 20th and 21st centuries. Her life story, marked by desertion, violence, and ultimate victory, strikes a profound chord with women who've struggled to claim their voices, their safety, and their rightful space in the world. Tina didn't merely survive domestic violence. She revolutionized how survival could be seen in the public realm. By choosing openness about her trauma, she offered countless women the courage to confront their own. In doing so, she redefined what strength meant, not as the absence of pain, but as the fierce determination to rise despite it. Her unwavering command over her own narrative was revolutionary for its time, especially during an era when women, and particularly Black women, were routinely expected to remain silent or submissive. By reclaiming her truth through candid interviews, autobiographical writings, and cinematic portrayals, Tina became a symbol of feminist endurance. She refused to be confined by the men in her orbit, be it as the overshadowed spouse of Ike Turner or the older artist the entertainment world attempted to discard. Instead, she crafted a place for herself, guided by her own vision and voice. In feminist discussions, Tina is now frequently referenced as a powerful example of autonomy, how asserting personal power and embracing artistic freedom can converge into a form of activism. Within magazines and media portrayals, Tina is consistently represented as bold, untamed, and courageous. Her essence is celebrated across countless avenues, from Beyoncé paying tribute to her during Super Bowl halftime shows to Angela Bassett's masterful portrayal of her on the silver screen. Her influence spans generations. Her life story isn't simply held up as a lesson in musical greatness. It's viewed as a narrative of liberation and reinvention. It resonates with artists, social advocates, and countless everyday women, especially those recovering from cycles of abuse, reshaping their identities, or navigating the societal hurdles of age discrimination and systemic racism. Even her striking style, metallic mini dresses, explosive hairstyles, and clothing that radiated raw sensuality, challenged cultural norms that dictated how women beyond a certain age should present themselves. Perhaps the most enduring element of her legacy is the way in which she is remembered not just for her songs, but for her survival. Her real-life experience with societal expectations, domestic violence, and the exploitative mechanisms of fame redefined public perceptions of womanhood, transforming it into something powerful, intricate, and ever-evolving. Even after her passing, her name remains a battle cry for anyone seeking to free themselves from toxic relationships, oppressive industries, or their own inner doubts. She shattered obstacles, gathered the shattered fragments, and danced over them in heels, inspiring others to find strength in their brokenness. Tina Turner's spiritual awakening through Buddhism during the 1970s marked a quiet yet monumental shift in her personal journey, one that eventually became the foundation of her internal transformation. At the peak of her suffering amid her abusive relationship with Ike Turner, she encountered Nichiren Buddhism and the life-affirming chant of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Initially uncertain, she began chanting out of sheer desperation, searching for solace, clarity, or merely the endurance to make it through another day. What she discovered instead was far more profound, an emerging sense of personal power. Buddhism offered her more than comfort. It presented a framework through which she could rebuild her identity from the inside. As time passed, the daily discipline of chanting evolved from a survival mechanism into a powerful liberation tool. Tina openly credited the spiritual practice for helping her dismantle the mental shackles that had kept her locked in fear and self-doubt. I began to realize that suffering wasn't mandatory. she reflected in a past interview. That was a revelation. The Buddhist principles of self-reliance and inner resilience mirrored the path she would eventually walk in both her life and music, a path centered on releasing external domination and reclaiming her inner voice. The chant became her emotional anchor, the soundtrack of her healing long before she ever attained international fame as a solo artist. Amid the rebuilding of her personal life and professional pursuits, Tina spoke candidly about how deeply these teachings shaped her outlook, something rare and bold for a celebrity of her stature in Western popular culture at the time. She also managed to speak about spiritual matters without the constraints of religious dogma or guilt, which allowed her to resonate with a wider, more diverse audience, many of whom were not just fans, but individuals yearning for meaning and strength in their own lives. In 2010, she released a musical and spoken word project titled Beyond, which featured global Buddhist chants fused with other spiritual traditions. This work exemplified Tina's unique ability to merge her spiritual beliefs with her artistry, extending her message of healing and empowerment to audiences far beyond the concert stage. Though it was pain and performance that originally thrust her into fame, a new chapter unfolded in her life, one shaped by presence and peace. Buddhism emerged not only as the support system that enabled Tina to endure her past, but also as the force that allowed her to rise above it. Her spiritual evolution eventually merged with her public image, becoming a beacon for women and survivors who saw her journey as a living map for how to heal while holding on to the truth of their pasts. Is it fair, then, to claim that chanting helped Tina mend her wounds and reshape the entire narrative of her existence? For her, spirituality was never a path to avoidance. She wasn't seeking to distance herself from the life story she came from. Instead, she found empowerment within it. In the end, Tina Turner didn't just embrace Buddhism as a matter of faith. It became an act of reclaiming her autonomy, choosing love for herself, and chanting her way back to her voice, her body, and her personal truth. Though her singing voice has since been silenced, what she left behind is now louder and more resonant than anyone could have predicted. Tina Turner's death in 2023 left behind not just grief, but a renewed sense of duty to commemorate the indelible mark she left on the world. In the wake of her passing, tributes surged across the globe. From special retrospectives to rediscovered treasures, her impact was reaffirmed once more. One of the most talked about releases was a never-before-heard song, Hot For You Baby, which revealed the timelessness of her raw, electrifying voice. The track ignited speculation. Were more unreleased gems lying dormant in the archives, waiting to inspire? Her influence lived on not only in music, but also in theater. Tina. The Tina Turner musical, already in production prior to her death, gained newfound gravity. As audiences gathered, many were moved to tears, connecting more deeply than ever to her rise from nutbush to global stardom. The show now acts as more than a biography. It feels like a breathing tribute, inviting audiences not just to remember, but to experience. Since her passing, new productions around the world have either launched or been announced, allowing Tina's legacy to be felt by younger generations and fresh cultures alike. Could it be that Tina Turner is poised to become one of the rare few whose life story grows larger than her already legendary discography? Documentaries have also become essential in preserving how Tina is remembered. The HBO documentary Tina, which aired in 2021 just before her passing, has been viewed as her final declaration about her legacy. In it, she acknowledged her triumphs with gratitude, yet made it clear she wanted her story to move beyond the pain she once endured. It wasn't a good life, she admitted with stark clarity, but the second half was. Since her death, whispers of new biographical projects have begun to circulate, including talk of a movie focusing exclusively on her life after Private Dancer, a time frame often left untouched by mainstream narratives. Might this finally be the moment when Tina Turner, the fully realized artist, is finally given her due, not just as a survivor of trauma, but as a master of reinvention? Yet perhaps the most enduring aspect of Tina's influence is her symbolic power in the world of cultural and social dialogue. Today, her life is referenced not only in music circles, but also in critical discussions surrounding domestic abuse, aging in entertainment, Black femininity, and resilience. Her story is now seen in murals, reflected in scholarship programs, discussed in social justice conferences, and even included in academic syllabi as a study in reinvention and inner strength. Though Tina Turner may no longer be physically present, her voice, gritty, glorious, and unrelenting, continues to reverberate across generations, across continents, and across disciplines. And as long as people look for proof that rebirth is possible, her story will remain ever relevant and everlasting. If Tina Turner's life touched your heart, be sure to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more hidden chapters behind legendary figures. And when you're ready for what comes next, click on the video currently on your screen. You absolutely won't want to miss it.